and radio host John Reid and Alonzo. They like you guys. Wow. I did their shows the other day, and they were so nice to me. I said, I got to announce those guys. That's great. Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. This is Dana B. over at Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries again with our buddies Charlie M. We're the three, Charlie M. and KJG, Kent G. And today we have the opportunity of talking with our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, John Reid. We'll get to him in just a second, but we want to take a couple seconds to tell you a little bit about Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries, which started about 3 years ago. And our mission over the last 3 years is to bring the entire community together. We have 7 different ministries that we work on, and we'll talk about some of that with John today. But we have our educational ministry. We're all about the children. Our spiritual ministry, which is about the church, the constitutional ministry, our civil defense ministry, our preparedness ministry, which we'll talk about as well, and our health ministry. And we've been doing this now, like I said, for the last 3 years. We do have a Wake Up Winchester Health and Freedom Conference that's coming up on June 28th, 2025 at the Millwood Fire Hall, which is off of Costello Drive right here in Winchester. We're going to have a lot of different speakers there covering everything from, it's more of a civics class. So we'll have the sheriff there. We'll have the county attorney will be there. We have people talking about education. We'll have our delegates. So you get the chance to see how our great constitutional republic works and be able to ask questions and so forth. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my buddy Charlie Markert, and he's going to introduce our guest, our buddy John Reid this morning. All yours, Charlie.
Thank you, Dana. Welcome, John. Thanks for coming on board and sharing your time with us and your ideas. And as far as introducing you, we prefer that actually you introduce yourself. So we would like to know a little bit more about your background before you got into politics, and tell us a little about yourself outside the realm of fighting the political battles.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see you virtually, and I was really glad to be able to see you in person and come out and spend a couple hours with you a few weeks ago at your meeting. And I'll admit, I showed up. You remember, I had my cowboy boots on, so that might have given me a little bit of credibility.
And you had Phil with you too.
Yeah, and Phil Rapp was there. Yeah. But I was the only guy in a tie, I think. And I thought, oh my gosh, are these guys going to hate me? Is this going to be okay? And one of the things that really struck me about your meeting was your introduction and your creed. Maybe you call it the creed, where you said you want to be strong, but you also want to be kind. And I thought, well,
and nice,
and nice, and
be nice.
I sat there in the back of the room, knowing that I was going to speak, and I thought, all right, if they're bold enough to say that with people who I think are probably very strong in their beliefs, but that's how they end, then I owe it to you to be completely candid about everything that I'm thinking about and who I am. And I felt like, that's a good rule in life, isn't it? Is to show up and be candid. And it's been weird to me. I started looking at running a year ago, and then I announced that I was going to run for lieutenant governor on January 27th. And a lot of the political consultants have said, don't be so candid. Don't reveal so much. Don't talk so much that's off script. We've prepared a script for you.
Right.
And I just reject that. And that's what I think people hate about politics.
Yeah.
Is that they think they're getting fed a line that was been focus tested in New York someplace, instead of a real person who, take it or leave it, like it or hate it, a real person who comes in and shares their beliefs and what they'd like to do. And
with no hidden agendas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The good thing for me on the radio, the last 8 years at the big radio station in Richmond, it's WRVA.
Right.
And it's a 50,000 watt station. It's been around for 100 years this year. Is that when you do radio, you don't have a script. When I was on TV for 10 years, you were reading the teleprompter, and occasionally you could go off of it. My show had a little bit of commentary, which sent people into orbit. But radio, you don't have a script, so you have to show up and be ready to talk and ready to share your opinion, and you're reacting to things as you know it at the moment, or as you believe you know it at the moment, and then the next day the story advances. And that fit very well for me because I think I'm a thoughtful person, and I've been around the block a few times, so I can usually tell when somebody's rolling me, or if something doesn't sound right, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So all of that is to say that the lifetime of experience, I'm 54 years old now, so I'm not a kid anymore. The lifetime of experience that I've had in the media and in public affairs and international affairs and in business, I think prepares me for this role. I went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas. Of course, I was born in Richmond and raised here, went to public schools, and graduated from St. Christopher's, the Episcopal church school that my dad had gone to and my grandfather went to here in Richmond. And then I went to Baylor in Waco back before Chip and Joanna Gaines turned Waco into, a Disneyland for folks.
Right.
Waco wasn't that exciting when I was there. And then I went and worked for Tom Bliley, who was the congressman from Richmond, who had been the mayor of Richmond, as a Republican, very strong Republican leader in the House of Representatives in the summer of 1992, which then opened a door for me to go work for President Ronald Reagan after the White House in his office in Los Angeles. And it was, I started out as an intern, and what I always do is try to take advantage of the situation that I'm in to try to grow opportunities and to demonstrate that I'm a hard worker and that I'll do the right thing, and you can count on me. And that's what I did in the president's office. So I took a 3-month internship and turned it into almost a full year in the Reagan office, traveling with him and with Mrs. Reagan. Almost every day I was with them in the office and in their home.
Nice.
I had a chance to write the first draft of a lot of his letters and op-eds in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and his speeches. Of course, they're his speeches, not mine.
Right.
And I sat with him sometimes on Sunday afternoons, and he would cross through things I'd written. And of course, it hurt me, like, oh, I want to do such a good job for this man. But, all those stereotypes about Ronald Reagan not being smart, I can personally testify that it was in his heart. And he was another person who understood the role that he was in, but that was a leadership role. So you get people who can help you, and then you give them strong direction. And I am forever thankful that here we are, 30 years later, and more 30 years on, 35 years later.
That was my first vote. There you go again.
Yeah, he was a
John.
good man and a good leader. And remember, everybody hated him. He was the Hitler back then. He was the dummy. He was all the things they say about Republicans. Right. There was the big discussion. He was the first president who had been divorced. Mm-hmm. So there was a big push that we can't have a divorced president. Can you imagine what we would have lost had we not said, we're going to look at you as a leader, somebody who can come with fresh ideas and bold, dynamic, strong leadership
and communicate.
And
what a communicator.
Ideas. Yeah. So I spent the year with him. Then I returned to Waco. I was at the CBS TV station for the 1-year anniversary of the horrors of the Branch Davidian tragedy.
Right.
And it was very eye-opening. The last day that I was at the TV station there, I routinely was out at the site where the building had burned and the deaths had occurred. That was one of the stories that I covered frequently.
Unreal.
And my photographer and I, we were shot at by people out there in the field because it was still just such a contentious situation the entire year I was there. And I had just been offered the job in Richmond, back in my hometown, for the ABC TV station. I spent a decade there. I got out. I didn't get shot. I came back to Richmond and became the investigative reporter and one of the anchors at the ABC station. And I stayed there from 1994 to 2004.
Wow.
It was really a wonderful experience. I grew a lot as a person. I mean, I was a really young man. I was the youngest anchor at the time to helm a show in Richmond.
That says a lot.
And I
says a
tried
lot.
to live up to it. The only mistake I made was back then I wasn't very disciplined about going to bed, and I had a hard time getting up for the morning show. But I've successfully conquered the alarm clock issue as an adult.
That was drive time in the morning.
Oh yeah, I had. It's weird. I'm not really a morning person by nature, but I made a point of, in my second chance at this at the radio station. Maybe it's just as you get older, it's easier to wake up. But that was a great experience at Channel 8. But George Allen and his team called me.
George Allen,
and the former governor, was in the U.S. Senate, and he was looking for a communications director who knew Virginia, who knew media. And I thought, do I want to stay in a role where I'm reading the teleprompter? And I probably could have stayed. I could probably still be there now as the anchor. But I thought, I don't want to just be the guy who reads the teleprompter. I want to learn new things. I want to see the world. I want to understand the government and people. So I moved to Washington to take that job as communications director for George Allen. And it was great. I can't tell you how much I admire him. He was strong. He was tough, very conservative, had a libertarian streak. He wasn't going to try to tell people how to live their lives. And that is an attitude that I have too. We're never all going to agree on everything. So my best bet is to try to set a standard for basic decorum in public and the way we treat each other, and hope that everyone will find a moral and good way to live their life, and try not to infringe on other people and their rights. And, the Democrats don't really believe that. Democrats want you to bow down to them. They have decided.
You have basically been a conservative all your life.
I have. My dad was a member of the House of Delegates. I guess that's his picture up here.
That's great.
For 18 years, representing Henrico County.
So you have a little bit of knowledge about what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, but going to Washington was an eye-opener, because I thought I was going into a Washington that was similar to the old Virginia way, which was, it was tough. People disagreed and they wanted to win, and it was a power struggle. But there were certain lines you didn't cross. And when I got to D.C., I saw the other side of it. Yeah. And in fact, I think I told you guys when I visited with you, George Allen had a bill that had been requested by Jim Baker, the former Secretary of State, because a member of his family had drowned.
Remember you telling us this.
Yeah, this little girl had drowned in the bottom of the swimming pool, got stuck in the drain.
Right.
So Jim Baker comes and says, hey, can you help us put a bill in for this little piece of plastic which will stop the suction? And George Allen's not an anti-government person. I don't need to micromanage everybody's life, but this was inexpensive. It was.
But this is safe. This is easy. How easy can this be?
And saves kids' lives. It took a year to get it through the Senate. It went to the House of Representatives, and the Democrats, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, killed it in the House of Representatives. And I was
favorite.
I was president of the Press Secretaries Association, and I went into these guys and I said, "What is going on? Why would you all do this?" Because it was bipartisan. And you know what they said to me? We can't let your boss have a win. It's an election year.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's
how sausage is made.
That's a sick mindset, and it has overtaken every element of our government. And I'm afraid that it has spread to Richmond, where you can no longer have those reasonable conversations with responsible, reasonable people. Now it's all politics all the time. And look, I'm a partisan. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. I don't make any, I don't hide it. But you have to be guided by basic sense of decency in the way you approach other people. Right. And every decision can't be political. And I think that's been lost. And as I have been a commentator for 8 years on American politics and Virginia politics at the radio station, I have become increasingly disillusioned by the arrogance and the really bold, I think, anti-intellectual kind of hostile attitude of the Democrats,
Right.
and a certain passivity amongst conservatives. I mean, if we don't stand up for what is right, and
We're done.
we will lose this society. And
Yeah.
it's happened around the world. You know, I've traveled to 113 countries.
It
around
has
the world.
happened around the world. It's happening everywhere in the world. Especially,
Right
John,
now.
I don't mean to cut you off, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Haven't you noticed something really drastic in the last, especially the last 5 years? I mean, even on the street, talking to people is completely different than it was before COVID, BC.
Yeah. I think it woke a lot of people up. I
Had to.
think the attitude of well, not even of a legislature, of an executive to say the ABC store can stay open, but your church needs to close.
Correct.
You have to. It makes no sense, but you've got to close at 10 p.m. because what, the COVID boogeyman suddenly shows up at 10 p.m. and
Absolutely.
there's the problem. And picking the winners and losers, like the guy down the street who owns the sandwich shop, he can't open, but some big box store can open.
Right.
Look, I
It
get
was
it.
amazing how COVID knew where to go, huh?
Oh,
And at what time?
and at what time? And I don't know. I just thought that in Virginia,
week.
especially, elected officials would have the self-restraint to say, let's not overstep. Have you seen the Virginia flag? We don't overstep here. We and in fairness to Ralph Northam, who I did not care for, but I tried to always be fair with him when he came on the radio. I said at the beginning, I was like, look, no one gives a damn what the radio guy thinks.
Right.
If a million Virginians die, they're going to write about Ralph Northam. So there's a lot of pressure on a person, whoever it is. And I wanted to give him grace to make tough
Being
decisions.
nice.
Yeah, be nice and,
Be nice.
and recognize that leadership is difficult, especially in a crisis. And we have the benefit today of talking, in hindsight about it. He didn't know, but 3 and 4 months into this,
We knew
we
a
had
couple weeks
data.
in, right?
And I hate to say this, I think the Democrats doubled down on crashing the economy in order to win the federal election.
Absolutely.
And that's sick to me. You know what? It's exactly what I just said about what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did in the House. Like, I don't care if people
She's
get
one
hurt.
of my favorites, John.
Their attitude is that they don't care
don't
if
think
people
so.
get hurt.
As long as they're okay with
As
their
long as they
agenda
win.
and their narrative,
By any means necessary.
by any
Yeah.
means necessary.
And that doesn't work for me. So I think a lot of people are awakened here. And
Yeah.
it's one of the reasons why I think we need strong leadership. And I love Glenn Youngkin. I'm so glad he's been governor. God,
Right.
he is vetoed over 200 bad bills. And Winsome Sears has been strong. Jason Miyares has been strong. And I hope that Virginia voters will give me an opportunity to be that next responsible, reasonable person in the room who
Excellent.
can offer good guidance.
Excellent, because it is all about the mission. I mean, that's why we're doing this and you're doing this. We saw it all come out a couple years ago, and we got to my wife and I got to the point also, John. We were like, wait a minute, my job decided to cut back. Okay, after 20
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
You're one of the top people. Like, okay, it's time for you to go after 20 years, and we're scratching our heads. And this is right at COVID, and we're going, wait a second, a week in, we're scratching our heads going, what is wrong with us? So we started doing what we're doing now, and here we are almost 5 years later. But Ken, I'm going to switch it over to you because I know you have some questions over here for John as well. What do you got for John that you think everybody would like to know?
Yeah, first of all, hey, good morning, John.
Good morning.
Great to see you again, by the way. Really appreciate you getting out to our little schoolhouse. That was a big deal for us, man. And
It is.
I want to give you respect for staying the entire time and even staying afterwards to answer any questions. Doing little small things like that makes a
was a good
big
night.
deal. Tells me what kind of character you are. And I want to, standing behind you 100%. We need to get you up
Thank
there.
you.
And so I'm going to tell you this, man. I started following your podcast this morning and gave you a subscribe. So Great guests. I think you had Trump Jr. on there, and the Virginia Attorney General. Keep doing it. That's the best way to get your message out. And we're going to get you up there. We're going to do everything we can to get you across that finish line.
Yep.
Thank you.
Charlie does a great job. Charlie, hats off to Charlie. He writes great questions. I'm gonna ask my own question on this, and this is something that my wife wanted me to bring up to you. This is very important. We've got a young daughter that's going to get ready to start school this fall. We've been on the edge of sending her to school versus doing homeschool. Now, John, you and I are almost, we're very similar in age. We're Gen Xers. I think it was the best time to grow up in America. And it was great going to school. I didn't have to worry about any situations that the insanity that's been going on for the past 4 to 5 years is absolutely ridiculous. And I remember back in the day, if you had a disagreement with somebody and you couldn't settle it, you'd go out to the baseball field and you'd slug it out for 5 minutes. And after it was all said and done, you shake hands, and guess what? 9 times out of 10, you guys became best friends for the rest of your life, and you walked away. And there was no SWAT team called. There was nobody pulling knives out. It's a ridiculous.
No kidding.
We didn't even throw sand at each other.
No, and the best part about it is it was kids working out their own problems. But of course, we don't live in that world anymore. I just saw on X, and this is funny because this is kind of the question. It's just kind of a broad question. But I want to read what you post. I'm going to paraphrase what you posted in the past 2 hours. And you said, "Isn't it sick that on the day that something brutal like this stabbing happens?" And there was a situation that happened yesterday between 16-year-old kids at the West Potomac High School in Virginia. It was filmed, and nobody stepped in to do anything about it.
It was crazy,
right? And even when if there was a situation with us in high school, if you got into a fist fight in a hallway, a teacher come out and just knock you down and stop it immediately.
Now people video it.
Now they video it and
do nothing.
And as you say here, isn't it sick that on the day that something brutal like the stabbing happens and it's recorded, Democrats spend their afternoon attacking me for saying there are severe problems with the public schools. And as you finish this statement, with blood on the floor and bad test scores, can't Democrats admit they're wrong? And will they work with me to fix this?
It's unbelievable. And
John, when you get in, I'm not saying if you get in, when you get in, what are you going to do? I know what you're going to do, but just tell us what's your continuation to make our schools safe, because it's a big deal. And like I said, we're on the edge of sending her to public school, or my wife and I are both qualified to homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
But your take on this, John, what can you say to pull us over that other side?
Yeah. Well, if you're looking at your school, you may have a great school. You may have a principal who's a disciplinarian, who's an old school principal who says, I don't care what you do at home, but here's the behavioral standard in this building, in these classrooms. A principal who will back up the teachers, and the teachers are disciplinarians. You know where I learned that? My father was a principal for 12 years in Chesterfield County. He was a football coach. He was a history teacher. And I remember him coming home and saying, I had to lay down the law today. And one of the things he also taught, so kind of a leadership lesson, is he would back up the teachers. There was no light between the teacher and the principal. Mm-hmm. And if there was a problem with the teacher, he talked to the teacher so that the kids didn't think they ran the classroom.
Right.
And I hope that there's still schools like that. I suspect there are. Similar to you, I told my sister with my niece and nephew, my nephew just turned 6, the little girl's 4. I said, get out of Maryland and come to Virginia and hope that these Henrico County schools will be better than what you're going to encounter if you stay in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And they have done that. So, I don't have children, unfortunately. That may change, but that's I don't have kids.
We were both from Maryland. My mother was a school teacher, so I get it.
But I've got a little bit of skin in the game. I want my family to be safe, and this next generation to be well educated and to be prepared to be good citizens. And I will say this is one of the key issues, not just in the schools, but in the society. Discipline and setting a standard for behavior in public We've lost all of that. I mean, how many times when you were growing up, when we were growing up, did you actually see a fist fight in a McDonald's? Or if you're in downtown Richmond in the middle of the day, did you see a scuffle or a conflict? I mean, I'm not going to lie. There were people who
We
said
saw it
nasty things.
once a year, once every couple of years. They were on a
Maybe.
Friday night after Skateland, you know?
At 2 a.m., at 11 o'clock, 2
Over
a.m.
French fries.
Yeah. Now we have allowed everyone to think that this is acceptable. And because of the videotaping and the social media, it spreads. And I think there's been a mindset change. And I want to tell you, the only thing that's going to change that is to get tough prosecutors, tough principals, disciplinarian teachers who are going to say, we're not putting up with this. And I was in Roanoke. Well, it was last week, but the days are starting to run again.
I get it.
And I was talking to a guy who said that he's convinced, and I tend to agree with him, that one of the number one things, he's got like 3 kids in the public schools. One of the number one things that starts the bullying is that everybody shows up dressed in a provocative way, and the kids get made fun of. Either they look poor or they look rich. And, you know, why are we tolerating this? Why are we not saying there's going to be discipline in the school? It doesn't crush your creativity. You can do whatever you want outside of the school. You're only there, 6, 8 hours, 10 hours a day.
The
rest of the day is yours. But we have lost all discipline in the classroom and in society. And I think we've got to have a concerted effort to say we're going to hold each other accountable. You know how many times I've been mad in the last year where people have insulted me or really impugned my character unfairly? And I was raised to get over it, rebut it if it's possible, if you choose to. But it never crossed my mind to go out and break somebody's windshield or key their car, set their car on fire, or even to call around and try to get them fired. You know, the only time that I have had anything like that happen was about 3 weeks ago. Someone put a death threat on Facebook against me.
Unbelievable.
And I shared it with the state police, and I shared it on Facebook. And the person either lost their job or they had just been terminated.
That's unbelievable.
Because I'm not trying to be vindictive and harmful to people. I'm trying to raise the standard for our interaction with each other. So that's a long answer.
Consequences.
There are consequences. I was brought up with consequences.
Yeah.
You know, don't you remember Dad with the belt? And then finally, after the first time, all he had to do was take it out.
And,
You're like, okay.
People adjust their attitude.
That's enough of that. I know where that's going.
That's the first thing. And then I do think in your situation, Kent, we've got to give options to people. I hope you've got a great public school for your kids. And I don't want to impugn everybody. There are people who are still working hard. But if you find that it's not, or it doesn't meet your standards, or maybe it's one of these crazy schools where it's all leftist indoctrination, gender theology, and CRT, and you're like, no, my kid's educational lifespan is the next 15 years, and I'm not allowing that to happen. You should be able to shop around for another option, because I guarantee you're paying taxes.
You bet.
That's school choice.
You bet.
So you're pro school choice.
Absolutely.
There you
go.
You know,
I think we're going to end up with that. We have a great president right now. I don't care what anybody says. We have the greatest president right now in history of this country.
To caveat,
you had Washington, which Charlie will be at our next Wake Up Winchester. He will be George Washington. We've had Abe Lincoln, and now we've got Donald Trump. And I don't care what anybody says. There's nobody that's doing what that man is doing right now. There's nobody. We had Ronald Reagan, and even the deep state kind of stopped him at the same time. They really put the kibosh on him on quite a few ways. And it was like, okay, don't step over these lines. And he did an incredible job within those lines. Let me switch gears a little bit here.
Can I
go ahead?
Can I
go
follow
ahead,
up? Let me follow up on John's. I'm going to caveat to it. Great thing happened yesterday. And the irony with the education system is Trump just signed a bunch of executive orders to eliminate a lot of the CRT and this DEI. This stuff it's a Marxist controlled system that is destroying the foundation and fabric of this country. And so that is a big pullover, because remember, Loudoun County moms are considered domestic terrorists on the FBI watch list. It was absolutely outrageous. Dana, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well,
Well, you're
let me
right.
say this: CRT and this DEI stuff.
And then this SOL stuff.
I try to explain to people who are very skeptical and for some reason think that my hostility to this is rooted in racism or something that is a character flaw for me. Here's an example I think everybody can understand. In your family, there's bound to be somebody, circle number one, circle number two, with aunts and uncles. There's bound to be somebody who has done something wrong, who has had bad behavior, who has, I don't know, is an alcoholic and mistreated their family.
It's in any family.
Right. So do you lie about that? No. In your family, you probably don't lie about it. Mm-hmm. It is, the question is, how do you address it? And you can address it in a way that poisons the family, that makes people hate that person, especially if they have reformed.
Right.
Right. Think about an ex-wife who constantly tells the kids, well, your father's horrible. I hate your father. Let me tell you, your father left me with this.
A lot of us have been through that.
Yeah. And I think CRT is like that. I'm not saying that everything's been perfect in American history and that race relations have been great. I'm not going to lie to you. No, that's not true. But are we explaining it in a way that brings the family together, acknowledges the problem, and says, isn't it wonderful that we have moved past that and we're in a better place and we're a stronger family? Or are we deliberately poisoning the well to try to undermine the family? And I tell you, CRT, DEI, and the Marxists, their goal is to poison the family. Why? So they can take over the society.
Divide and conquer.
Correct.
So,
divide and conquer. I was reading something yesterday about Thomas Sowell, who was a devout Marxist and everything else. And all of a sudden he's like, wait a second, I'm in government. It doesn't work like that. I'm conservative. Holy cow, I would have never thought that, that this actually works this way. But I think school choice is coming into view. I really see that happening. And if over the last few years, I know we've been through some really bumpy patches, and I know we're going to be through more bumpy patches, but it seems to me now this year that people are starting to wake up, and now they're starting to see what the evil side of humanism, for lack of better terms, actually is. They're scratching their head going, wait a minute, I don't want that. I don't want that anymore. I don't want it. And I think we're seeing a big change in society, and I think we're going to see a bigger change in society as we go along. But here's my question, John. I know that the people in our state and everywhere in the country right now have all of these expectations, these giant expectations. Ideally, what do you think would be like the best version of, what would the best version of Virginia be? In your mind, what do you see Virginia being, and also how can we help you get there?
Yeah, well, I start with the word freedom, and
Absolutely.
I think we need to study that. I think our society has shifted away from a freedom mindset to a government will tell me what to do, and
Right.
They'll pay the bills, and when there's a problem, they'll step in and fix it, instead of what made America great, which is individual communities solving their own problems,
Right.
families staying together. I mean, I can tell you, when I lost my job, the only way I got through it was my mom and my dad and my sister and my family saying, you're going to get through this. We're going to help you. If my family had blown up and dissipated and there wasn't any family loyalty, I wouldn't have made it.
Right.
And unfortunately, we have created a society where we are dismissing the family like it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, you're over here. Families are, because of the way we travel and work today, they're split up geographically. I think we're doubling and tripling down on things that don't create the building blocks of a stable society. And that's a problem. So having a free society where we respect boundaries, We allow people to make their own decisions. They got to own the consequences of it.
Absolutely.
Let me be honest. You don't get to go out. It's one of the things about the drug issue and the marijuana issue. My general attitude is you do you. The problem is,
don't let it affect me.
In a nation of 330 million people, you can allow people to make decisions that are predictably going to undermine the stability of the society, and make us dysfunctional. And I think we got to think carefully before we allow that. And it does seem to me that everybody's attitude, and I've dealt with this with several of my friends who have become drug addicts. I mean, it's been horrifying. I'm just stunned at really smart, wonderful people that I have cared about who have become drug addicts, and it's ruined their lives and their health. And they have always kind of shocked me with the attitude of, oh, well, I'll just go to rehab.
It's not as easy as that. I've been through it.
Paid for by other people. And you're losing a decade of your life.
Exactly.
If you're lucky enough to survive and get to the other side of it.
Exactly.
And there's a disconnect. Like I'm not perfect, but I wake up every morning and think, I got to figure this out myself. No one's paying my bills. It doesn't even cross my mind to look for a government program to pay for my bills. It really never has. And I think freedom with a sense of responsibility is important. And then as a government official, because I'm not trying to be someone's pastor, I'm not trying to be your counselor, I'm trying to be the lieutenant governor.
Right.
Having a broad-based, vibrant economic ecosystem in Virginia is important. And your friends up in Northern Virginia are very worried with President Trump's cuts. I mean, we're $36 trillion in debt. So I have to tell you, things are going to have to change. And I'm so sorry that that's hurting people. I understand the drama and the anxiety because I've been through it. But things are going to have to change. But you'll make it.
Buckle up.
And as long as we have leaders in the state who understand how important it is to create a prosperous economic situation, not just in Northern Virginia, but in Richmond, at Virginia Beach, in Southwest Virginia, Bristol, Damascus, Abingdon.
Great
Blacksburg.
tie together.
Then you have a fighting shot. When something happens and you lose your job, you can go across the street and interview and get another job that's comparable. And that's what I think I can bring. I think Glenn Youngkin has done a great job of this. I mean, he was a CEO, so he can sit and talk to other CEOs and say, let me sell you on why Virginia is the place you want to open and expand. And the Democrats don't care. They're going to get rid of your right to work. They're going to try to force you into a union, which means a percentage of your check is forcibly going to go to the union to support things that you may not like. And I'll tell you, these businesses are not going to come to Virginia. They're going to go to North Carolina, to Tennessee, to South Carolina. Yeah. So I think that mindset of freedom and personal responsibility, coupled with political and governmental leaders who are going to do everything they can to beat back the regulation and bring in business so that you've got opportunities. I think that makes us a successful society going forward.
That sounds like Byron Donalds, the opportunity zones.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he did a great job with that. I mean, they really did a great job with that. I do want to take a second because I have to do a shout out real quick. We always do. John, this has been a great conversation, but Mountain Patriots does a lot of different things as far as health and security and safety and so forth. And what we did yesterday, and John, this is pretty neat. You might want to take a look at the podcast we did yesterday. This is called My Notification Services. We did a podcast on it yesterday. And there's a little card. This is a big card that goes in your wallet. And if something happens to you and an EMT or a doctor gets a hold of this, they can call the number on here. It's got my code on it.
Okay.
And what that'll do is it will kick our call center into gear to call 9 contacts for me and let somebody know to pick up my kids. If I have a parent that I'm taking care of, to go check on them, to let my dogs out, to let my job know I'm not going to be there.
You know what it is? It's the old-fashioned church telephone tree.
It's exactly what it is. But now this goes on the back of your license, and it's in all 50 states, and it's worldwide. So if we have a power of attorney or a directive or anything like that, like Charlie is one of my contacts. If something happens to me, Charlie knows exactly what to do to help me out. My wife knows, my son knows, my neighbor knows where the dog food is and how to feed the dog. It sounds very simple, but for about $20 a year for that peace of mind, that's huge. And that's one of and it's usually $60 a year, but because of Mountain Patriots, if you go to mynotify1.com and put in the word Patriot, you get a 65% discount on it. And most of us, Kent has it, Charlie has it, I have it. Most of us have it because we are community. And you're right, John, it is the old telephone line. But I've got my medications are there, my blood type is there, what I'm allergic to is there. I mean, it can save people a lot of time, effort, energy, and money just being at the hospital trying to figure out what this person has and tests. So we wanted to set things up so that people had an opportunity to be able to protect themselves as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, in the modern era, it's so crazy. We're so connected, like myself. We're so connected, and yet we're disconnected. And yesterday, this adds to your advertisement, I guess. Yesterday, I was in Kilmarnock, right? And I stopped. We had done a tour down in Reedville, and I was all over the place talking to people, business owners. I stopped in to visit a guy who runs an antique store, who pretty well known, has been there since the 60s, right? And everybody said, "Oh, when you're there, you got to stop in this antique store." I like looking at antiques, so I went in and talked to him for a couple of minutes, talked to the lady at the front desk, bought one little thing for my mother, and then I left. I went to go to have lunch, and by the time I got one block down the street, the receptionist at the restaurant said, "I hear you're running for lieutenant governor. Is your name John Reid?" I mean, they were calling around like, "Here's this guy." That's Kilmarnock. That's kind of the old small town where they look out for each other. I mean, if I'd been a bad guy, I think they would have told people that too. But and I was like, wow, this is so different. That here in a smaller town, folks are very interconnected, and yet in Henrico and in the city of Richmond and in Northern Virginia, people don't know who their next door neighbor is.
Right.
Seriously.
Right. It's important. I mean, we are interconnected, and that's one of the big missions of Mountain Patriots. And you'll hear that in our prayer. Okay. We are connected. Each one of us, our Mountain Patriots group, we all have radios. We do a net check. We know where everybody is. We know if somebody needs help, how to get in touch with them. And then we have the My Notification system if something happens. So we put it all together. So we always say, it's about the mission. Charlie, do you have another question here for John?
Yeah, I just a simple.
This has been great, John. Thank you.
In addition to what we've talked about, what are some of your hot buttons that drive you, that get you up in the morning to want to go and do good and make things better?
Good question.
Well, as I told you all when I was with you in person, 2020 and 2021 really shook my faith,
all of us,
in leadership. And fundamentally, I think we need people who are going to make good, reasonable, responsible decisions and will stand up for police officers. In Henrico, where I live, and the place I'm sitting right now is about 2 miles from the house that I grew up in. So I know this area pretty well. It's changed a lot. And I used to ride my bike at night. No problem. Mm-hmm. Now we have a 74% increase in murders in Henrico County. That's alarming to me. And it's not just somebody, caught their husband or wife cheating and freaked out. I mean, it's now it is a corrupt criminal element in some cases that come down in Interstate 64, Interstate 95, and go in and rob houses. There's a lady who runs one of the local drugstores. All my prescriptions are there. So I talked to her. She immigrated from Europe, and she says, "I don't even bother calling the cops anymore because I get robbed every day. I've had to factor that in." And so Anecdotally,
That's unbelievable. I have to factor that in to my overhead that somebody's going to. That's where we are.
And they don't call the cops because the cops, we've lost cops. And when they come, they fill out a piece of paper and that's it.
That's it.
That's different than the society I grew up in.
Yeah.
And, there's several components that if you're watching closely, you can begin to see the deterioration of the civilized society.
Right.
And 2020 and 2021 with the violence, look, I don't think everyone in America should suffer violent repercussions because of something, whatever it is, that happens in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's a big country. So I think it's wrong that people suffered all across America, no matter what your perception is of what happened in Minneapolis.
Right.
I think it's wrong that we all went through that. I don't think that's right. And I actually, forgive me, it's probably not my place to say this, but I don't think Dr. Martin Luther King would have approved of that either. So then when we got to COVID and I saw the overreach and I think the nefarious attitude of harming people, I just felt like I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore.
Right.
So between stopping the crime, being a strong leader who will stand up for right and wrong, with the caveat that I believe in personal freedom and personal responsibility, and economic development. I mean, that's what motivates me to do this, because I think we got a bunch of social justice warriors in the Democrat Party at the Capitol today, and it's all about emotion. It's all about a self-righteous
feelings.
I know I'm right, and I joked on the radio show all the time. What's the difference between me and a Democrat? There are many, but one of them is I'm only 99% sure I'm right. They're 100. I always hold out the possibility that I've missed something, or I haven't talked to the right person, or there's something I don't know that will influence me to make an adjustment, maybe not a different decision, but an adjustment. And if you're a leader on the radio, in media, in politics, and
that's
you don't
huge.
hold out that, if you're so self-righteous and self-confident that you're going to bulldoze other people, I don't think you should be in a leadership position. And that's what we've got from the Democrats now.
I like the way you said that, John, because the media has so much to do with it. You know all about the Mockingbird media. At 4 o'clock in the morning, they get their talking points and they all say the same thing. They all say, and this is a threat to our democracy, and this is a threat to our democracy, and this is a threat, and this is a threat. And it's the same thing. Let me get my talking points at 4 o'clock. So in the morning, but we're not getting the individual thought, the critical thinking process from people anymore. They're just kind of told, or like Kent was talking about schools, they're just told what to say. We have a daughter that's 18. When she was 14 years old, she's telling us about Hillary Clinton and I'm thinking, where is it? And you're in a Maryland school. Well, Hillary Clinton is much better than Donald Trump. And you're like, well, why? Because, and there is no, and then they stomp their feet and they beat their chest, and you can't have a conversation. But I think people are waking up to a lot of this stuff right now. They really are. And I'm going to tag in here because we also do a lot of self-defense. We practice. We believe in the Second Amendment. Okay. As a matter of fact, we got our thing on Sunday, and we're very, very responsible with what we do with training and everything else. Yeah. What is your take on our Second Amendment rights here in Virginia? Because I know between that and abortion, they're under siege right now. We've got trafficking problems, we got abortion problems, and we have gun problems and education problems and money problems. I mean, it goes on. I hate to throw it to you like that, but
no. Listen, Kent, did you ask me this in person? Somebody asked me over on the left side.
Well, okay. I tell you, John, you got a good memory, because that was something that myself and another guy named Jim, we did talk to you about 2A stuff. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Great memory.
And I want to be clear about it. I probably should make this one of the priorities that I lead with.
That we're talking to today be able to hear what we got a chance to hear, see, and experience when you came out a few weeks ago. This is big.
I'm strict on the Second Amendment. I mean, you have a right to defend yourself, And I will tell you, the Democrats are misplaying every element of this.
Yeah.
They won't lock up the people who've already demonstrated that they're violent. They won't
like
lock
the
them
Maryland
up.
man.
They give them second and third chances. Second and third chances, not to redeem their life, because I believe in redemption. I believe that you can fix your life right up until the moment you're gone. You can fix it. But that does not mean that I have to endanger other people in order to give you a second chance. And so the Democrats are obsessed with restricting your right to have a weapon, to have a gun, when they won't do the fundamentals of protecting the innocent citizens. And I look at a state like Virginia, you have what, 8.5 million people here?
Mm-hmm.
I got to worry about the law-abiding citizens. Right. I got to prioritize them, not the people who are breaking the law.
So you wouldn't go down and get the Maryland man out of El Salvador if you were Chris Van Hollen, right?
Can you believe that this guy that's smart? I mean, you know, the guy, by all accounts at this
point, is
MS-13. Is a part of MS-13. I mean, I guess they're different levels of being a part of a
but we're going to go American save him gang. And leave our citizens over here.
But he shouldn't have been here in the first place.
No.
And here's two stories that dovetail into the 2A issue. Good. My dad in the legislature stood up on the floor of the House of Delegates and said, and it was provocative. I mean, this is the 90s. Mm-hmm. He said, I want Virginia to be the most inhospitable state for illegal immigrants in the entire country.
Kent likes that.
They were furious. And guess what? The death threat started against him.
Of course.
He went and got his concealed carry permit. From then on, he carried a gun with him when he felt like he would be by himself, or he would be trackable, or he would be in a situation where he may be confronted by these radicals. And that was in the 90s. Yeah. And it's worse now.
2025.
So I tell people that, you know, I'm not a huge outdoorsman. It's not like I'm, you know, a gun guy. But I will tell you, when my friend called me and said, hey, John, this is in 2020, and I was on the radio every morning calling out the violence of BLM and Antifa.
Right.
And he said, hey, watch your back. The chatter is that they're trying to find where you live, which is not hard. And, you know, you go to the radio station and it's an empty parking lot, you know, watch yourself. I was glad I had my concealed carry.
Yeah.
And I never talk about weaponry because it's nobody's business. But I want people, until you're in that situation, and look at me, I didn't expect to be in that situation.
Right.
And yet suddenly I had people telling me they might kill me.
Right.
And I wanted to have the right not to wait a week like I need to calm down. No, they need to calm down. I was able to get a weapon, and I was able to carry that weapon. And I'm not flashing. I'm not, you know, it's nobody's business until someone tries to kill me. And I want a woman who has just been raped, who's just been attacked, who's being threatened by some crazy ex-boyfriend who's a nut, to be able to defend herself if she needs to. I want.
We didn't think about this 30 years ago. I mean, you're talking about walking down your street with your bike and not being able to do it. And I'm thinking about my old neighborhood, and I know Kent is as well.
Yeah.
You know, John, let me just shift real quick. And what do you think about the trafficking situation that we have here in Virginia? Because we are the fourth largest. We're like the fourth largest trafficking area in the country because of where we are. Okay.
With
we do training on this because of the intersections. I mean, and DC is notorious for it. I don't care what people say about Pizzagate. I think it actually, there was a lot of stuff that goes with that. But the trafficking and the fact that we have all of these intersections here that are right here, we do a lot of training on this as well. And I know this has been a hot button for Kent and Charlie and for our whole group. We have people to train on this. What can we do that would help support you or our next administration, because we know we're going to win, our next administration, to be able to combat this? What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I think Winsome Sears as governor will be very aggressive about this. I mean, people forget sometimes that she's a Marine. And I don't think she's going to put up with Virginia being one of these states that looks the other way. I know Jason Miyares has already attempted to be a big leader on that. And I will be too. You know, you're correct that those interstates and this mid-Atlantic corridor from Florida all the way up to New York lends itself to this type of, in the 80s, it was drug running, right? And
Right.
that's why
81, 66, right.
Richmond
95.
became the murder capital of America
Absolutely.
per capita because of the drug running up Interstate 95. And now there's a different drug. It's human beings. And
Yeah.
I
Because
think
you
we've
can
got to
keep using
mobilize.
a human being you can use over and over and over and over. Drug
Yeah,
you use once.
it's sick.
It's sick.
But people don't know about it. And you know what I say when I go to these little community meetings, and there's suburban people who just want to live a happy life. They bought a house in the suburbs because they didn't want drama. They wanted
Right.
to live a happy life and raise their kids and be happy.
Right.
And I'm like, if you don't know about these things, I'm so glad. I'm glad it hadn't touched you. I'm glad that you're not obsessed with watching the local news constantly and, poisoning your head. But please don't infringe on the efforts of people who do see this grotesque abuse of human beings on a regular basis and want to do something about it. Because it's real. It's real. And
unconscionable.
Serious people need to take serious action to stop it. And that's if it makes you uncomfortable, good. Then you're living in a happy, safe place, and I'm glad for you. But some of us are stepping up to try to stop it. And please help us do that so that it doesn't touch you and your family.
Well, that is a great answer, Charlie. We're down to it's at the end of the close of the podcast. I'm going to let you ask John the last questions and how we can help.
Yeah. What are your final thoughts that you would share with us as we close out this podcast of sort of your elevator speech, or what you want to leave as the final thought challenges for the people, and give us your website, how we can donate. You
See,
guys
I gotta
have
fix
to have
that.
the blood of.
I gotta lead with the website, Charlie.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
you reminding me.
Go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
we want to be able to be as much help as we possibly can.
Thank you. The website is johnreid4virginia.com, and Reid is REID, johnreid4virginia.com. There's a lot of information about my positions, about my background. If you missed the bio, it's there. There's information about the events that I'm doing. Of course, there's the donate button, which would really help because the Democrats are going to outspend us.
Oh, yeah. We're
unbelievable amounts of money. They want this state, and we've got to be able to fight back. Now, I'm willing, like I said, I'm willing to do these podcasts, and I'm not scared to talk to people unscripted. But you got to be able to beat back the awful stuff that's being said.
Yeah.
And I just want everyone who's listening to know, I am a conservative. I've tried to help conservatives win. When I was on the radio, I always gave airtime, tried to be balanced and fair, but I gave airtime I had a rule. I was like, I don't want to say no to my friends.
Right.
I want to give them the chance to express themselves because all the other mainstream outlets wouldn't do it.
Right.
They discount you. So I hope that people will look back and say, John tried to help advance the movement, explain the movement. And, Charlie, you remember at the meeting, there's an uncomfortable topic for a lot of folks, and I just feel an obligation to be upfront with voters. I am a Christian. I don't know whether everybody, we're all going to stand before God on the day we die, and I will do that just like you will. I'm also a gay man. And I've been out of the closet for 30 years. I was terrified of that. I've been abused. And, what's weird is, 25 years ago, I'd go for a jog and people would hurl insults at me and throw a beer bottle at me. And now in the political realm, there are people who are trying to abuse and attack me now, even though I'm trying to be very transparent, I'm not hiding anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that people who examine me will say, look, this is one of our people who may or may not be perfect by whatever standard you're using. I accept that. I'm not trying. I'm not trying to change people's minds. I'm not trying to change your interpretation of the Bible. I'm not demanding that a minister change his sermon to his flock. I'm not telling your church you have to have a gay wedding. I'm not demanding that anybody bake a cake that they don't want to bake, or create flowers that they don't want to create, or associate really with people that they don't want to associate with. I mean, it hurts my feelings a little bit, perhaps, as a person, but that's okay. I'm an adult.
I would be willing to bet that all of us have someone in our family in your circumstance. And as long as that doesn't affect other decision making, it shouldn't matter.
Mhm.
And
I hope that's
I
right.
personally am behind you
We
100%.
had somebody in our family, same way. Same way.
I appreciate it very much. And when I decided, I had to think about this before I ran. I thought, is it
Sure.
worth it to go through what will inevitably be a debate and an ugly confrontation and a lot of lies and
Right.
and fakery? Oh my goodness!
A lot of people may even feel that the gay and lesbian issue is nothing compared to the trans issues and all of those things today.
Well,
Right.
let me
So
say,
the good
and I
old
think I
days
told
were
you all.
when there were gays and lesbians.
Yeah, I've got some in the gay community mad at me because I did an interview with a gay reporter, and I said,
What do you
everyone tells
expect?
me I shouldn't talk to you, but I'm going to talk to you, and I just hope you'll be fair. I supported the right of people to have a gay marriage, not for you to have to condone it or be a part of it, but for people to be able to live as they see fit, which I think is fair. And I supported the exact same standards for gay men and women to serve in the military. No changes, no special accommodations. If certain behavior would get you kicked out if you are in a heterosexual, then that same behavior should get you kicked out as a homosexual. No
Rules
special
across the board.
Yeah. I was doing that 30 years ago. But now, because I say we should not allow children to be chemically castrated or mutilated. I mean, it's not my place to tell an adult what to do. I think it's crazy personally, but okay. There are a lot of crazy things people do that I don't approve of personally. But again, I want to live in a free society. So you do you. But with kids, heck no, we cannot allow this. Because I was one of those kids in my teenage years who struggled with issues. And I'm so glad that I spoke to ministers, honestly, Christian ministers who said, don't give up, John. Don't blow your brains out. Don't quit. Don't go and get involved in drugs and prostitution. And, don't go over to that lifestyle. Maintain who you are, and you will find a way to do something good with your life. And I want to share that message with people. And I want to stop what I think is a really nefarious movement. And some of it's motivated by money, and some of it's motivated by a radical idea that you can indulge mental illness and that will somehow work out okay. And I don't think that's right. And so now I'm making everybody mad. But the best I can do is be honest with the voters. And that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome.
Well, what you stand for politically, socially, emotionally, fits right in with us.
Thank you.
We appreciate you're willing to step into the arena
and be straight up,
fight, and do battle for us.
Well, I know you're people of faith, and I think I said this with you. I appreciate the prayers. My prayers have kept me through some very dark times when I thought the world was turning against me. And I've had a faith community that has been very supportive, and I'm blessed by that and thankful for it.
We pray 20. My wife Barbara will tell you, we pray 24/7. The two of us, it's constant. And I do have to give a shout out to her, who's going to put all of this together. Pat Girl, you are fantastic. I also want to, before Charlie does the prayer, I want to to let people know that you want to make sure that you check out conservativesoflakefrederick.com with Alan Rhonda Torres. They're behind us as well. They have a phenomenal website. They do some great newsletters. I know that you've probably done a Zoom call with them as well, John. They support you. A lot of us are behind this and want to make sure that we can take Virginia back, and that's what we're going to do. So I wanted to give a nice shout out to Alan Rhonda from Conservatives of Lake Frederick, and again my wife Barbara and John. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart today for coming on and talking to us, being a part of Mountain Patriots, and we want you to come back out and see us again. I know we've got a big campaign coming up throughout the summer, and you'll find out that Mountain Patriots works their little tails off pretty much 24/7.
I'm appreciative.
Thank you so much. And your team has been more than helpful and gracious trying to get all of this together. So I want to thank Alonzo. I want to thank Bonnie. They have been fantastic. So make sure that they get a big thanks and an amen from me. So, Charlie, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you can take us out with the Mountain Patriots prayer. John, any last thoughts, my friend?
I just thank you very much, and I hope everyone will keep their eye on me. I promise I'm going to work hard to earn every vote. Nobody owes me anything. I'm going to earn it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being here. Charlie, all yours, my friend.
Okay, let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful world and this country that you've given us, and the patriots who are willing to care for it. Thank you for inspiring our founders to create this beautiful republic. Please help us keep it as the aspiring place to live. Please give us the wisdom to do the right things, the common sense to judge wisely, the energy to never give up, and your unending grace in which we take comfort. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Folks, that is fantastic. Thank you all very much. Don't forget the June 28th is a Wake Up Winchester. Go to wakeupwinchester.com. And that's a wrap for Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries with John Reid. Thank you all for being here this morning.
God bless.
God bless.